right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fostoria High School, junior senior high school. We appreciate you all coming out tonight as we are going to share information with all of you about our upcoming bond issue on November the 3rd. We hope that we can get your support on this project. It's very important to the future of the school district, and we have many school staff members that are going to present information this evening, as well as one of our architects from Garmin Miller, who's going to present along with us this evening. And then once we go through a general presentation, we'll get you all fed. And while you're eating tonight, you'll be able to watch a slideshow of some pictures of things that are in the buildings now that we currently have, and some of the issues that we're trying to address. And they'll be kind of paired up and compared with pictures of what it could look like if we're able to pass this bond issue on the 3rd. And then also, before we go to dinner, we also want to have question answer time as well. I don't want to forget to mention that. On your table, you should have some cards that you can write down questions on. We will have a couple of microphones out in the crowd tonight that will you can come over and ask your questions if you have questions, or you can write them down if you would prefer for someone else to read them, and then we'll read them. We want to make sure that we get questions addressed so that everyone has the information to go out there and feel that they're informed on the. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started here this evening. All right. Thank you. About a year ago, we were presented with some information from the state of Ohio in a group called OSFC, the Ohio Schools Facility Commission. And they came to us and said, we have an opportunity we think you're going to be interested in. We want you to think about, the future of your district, not just the here and the now with your buildings, but looking at the future and what you can do. And what they do is they assign what's called an equity rank to your district. And the state pays a portion of the project, and then the local school district picks up the portion of the project. The breakdown right now is the state is paying 89% of this project, and the local community is paying 11% of the project. All right, and we're going to get more into the numbers as we go, but you can see that last bullet point up there says the last time we were on the ballot for a facilities project, the local share was at 41%. Now we're at 11%, so we've got a much bigger deal, or better deal, and then the project is actually larger, so we're going to have more money, more tax dollars coming back into our community and promoting the future of Fostoria schools and Fostoria. So hopefully we can demonstrate that here for you tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne Coleman. He works for Garmin Miller, who is the architect group that we have contracted with to begin this pre-bond process so that we have the opportunity to roll these ideas out to you all tonight. So Wayne, here you go.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me for dinner. I appreciate that. That's pretty nice. Everybody can hear me all right? Okay. One of the things that, as Andy mentioned, that when the state contacted the district and said, we think we've got a pretty good deal for you and we'd like you to consider it, we were brought in as the architectural firm. The state usually comes through your buildings and does an assessment. They want to know what your systems are like, your boilers are good, your roof is good, and that type of thing. But we also, as an architectural firm, do that same process. And so this is just to give you an example of what we are looking for when we come through. We want to make sure that, in fact, your heating systems are correct, that your roof is not leaking. And if it is, then what is the cost to replace that? It's not repair, it's replace. So it's a renovation scope. And if you just kind of look through here, I won't read them all. Obviously, I mentioned heating system, roof. We look at the windows, the structure. General finishes, this item J is kind of a big category. This includes not necessarily furniture, but the casework, the finishes in all of your rooms. Loose furnishings down there on item V is furniture. We also look at technology upgrades. We look at safety and security items. So it's an all-encompassing kind of 23 points of your building. So once we've completed that, we start putting, there you go, putting a comparison together. The state of Ohio actually comes in and they'll look at a building and decide whether it's worthy based on financial constraints, whether it's worthy to be renovated, but they'll also compare it to the cost of new. So along with their assessment and our assessment of cost of renovating, we did this comparison. This is probably a little bit hard to see, but if you notice, to build new, it's the total cost about $29 million just for this building. The renovation cost of this building was 31.9, almost $32 million. So right away we started thinking, I think it would be financially responsible to look at the process of a new building. But I've been around a lot of community meetings and everyone says, what's wrong with our building? When you drive by it, it looks great. It's well maintained, but it's aging, and there's got to be those systems that we looked at are need to be replaced. So just to give you that idea, the comparison between new and renovation, it was actually cheaper to build new. However, there's other slides, and we'll be talking about it. We wanted to keep parts and pieces of this building as well. So I think we have slides that show that, and we can go through that. So this was the process. This was our starting point, and then we've been working with the district ongoing now to come up with a plan that would work and take advantage of this great opportunity that was given to you by the state. Is that it? You're up.
All right. Looking at the scope of our project, like Wayne was talking about, we're looking to do new 712 junior senior high school that will eventually be tied into, as part of the project, it'll be tied into the existing portion of this building that we want to keep. Right where we are at right now will become administrative offices, and then out here will be kind of a tribute to the district's history. It'll have memorabilia built in and things like that, because I'm a very firm believer that we are not here today having this in Fostoria schools if we didn't have the history of the district to get us to this point, and we never want to lose sight of that. While we might not use those older buildings anymore, we're not going to lose sight of that is what has given us this opportunity to be here today, and I think that's very important, and we want to incorporate that into any new design that we do. We're going to do a lot of renovation and an addition next door to the intermediate building to be able to make that a pre-K through 6 building. So there's going to be a lot of work done on there, and I know the shows on TLC are ever popular right now. Property Brothers and Flipper Flop and all those, where they come in and do all those construction inside. That's going to be kind of like Property Brothers on steroids next door by the time it's all said and done, which could be really exciting. And it's going to address some of the issues that we have in the district right now, especially since when we realigned and we brought third graders over into that building, which was built for 6th through 8th graders, and then we ended up with third graders over there one day, and they go to get a drink, and they're like trying to get up on their tiptoes, and they can't drink. So, being able to address some of those things, and I know the unfortunate piece is we're going to lose some buildings in town. Holmes, Riley, and Longfellow would all be torn down as part of the project. And we would, obviously, Longfellow being connected into the stadium, we would incorporate things over there into that complex. And Holmes is in, unfortunately, pretty bad shape right now, and we're basically using that as a storage since we moved central office out of there to cut expenses a few years ago. And we're not exactly sure what we're going to do with the Riley property at this point in time. I'm going to be real honest with that, but that's a discussion that we will have and as we move forward. On this building, basically from the edge of the common to the south, where some of you might have come in this evening, that's the part of this building that will come down. Okay, those are, and you'll see in the second slideshow tonight, You'll see a lot of pictures from inside the classrooms and some of the issues that we're dealing with, and the expense of some of those repairs just kind of outweigh being able to save those portions. But on this end of the building, we've done a lot of work, and it's really important that we, our Performing Arts Center is by far one of the best in the area that I've seen, and it's a very large Performing Arts Center. We're going to do some more work in there with some seating and things like that, to do some renovations in there as well. But we want to keep those. That's something that isn't funded under the project scope through the state. So we would have to pay for any renovations that we do in there. So that's what's called an LFI, a locally funded initiative. So we'll have to put money into those, which is all factored into what you have before you this evening. But we've also done a lot of work in our gymnasium. So we don't want to get rid of those things where we've put tax dollars into already. We want to try to maintain those areas that we just, have already brought up to where we're using them at here today, and we're very satisfied with those areas. So we don't want to look like we're throwing things away. So that's kind of the scope of the project. And now we're going to kind of hear about some of the things that are going on in the buildings and why this project, outside of some of the financial pieces and some of the issues that have already been addressed, but some of the instructional pieces, some of the safety pieces, we're going to hear about some of those as we move forward now.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Drew Bauman. I'm the principal at Fostoria Junior Senior High School. I'm a lifelong Fostorian. My grandfather graduated from Fostoria High School. My father, born and raised in this town, so I appreciate all of you coming out and providing the support for this. This is near and dear to me, my heart, so very appreciative of that. Being in our building and kind of having the most, I guess, extreme changes away from the elementary buildings that are going to be moving out to a centralized campus, I kind of want to touch on the security aspect and the improvements that we can make with a project like this, because and I didn't graduate high school that long ago, but the world that we live in today is a very, very different world than was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And unfortunately, these are measures that we have to be sure that we have in place, because student safety is the utmost priority for our students, for our community. So if you can look around our building currently and see just here in this space the number of windows, and if you look outside the building, you'll notice a number of exits, a very porous building, and a lot of older buildings are. At the time this building was built, it was architecturally, if you look in the classrooms, there's glass, and probably half of the classrooms have glass windows, full glass windows. It's not a safe environment. If there is an extreme situation, or even just for student day-to-day safety, 12 to 18-year-olds sometimes are clumsy, they make poor decisions, and glass walls don't always lend themselves to those poor decisions and positive outcomes. So with a new building, and we've worked really hard to put in some of these security measures in our buildings already. If you visit any of the buildings, whether it be a Longfellow, Riley, or the intermediate building or our high school, you have to be buzzed in. The days of coming to an entrance and just opening the door and walking in, unfortunately, are over. So you're buzzed in, and there are cameras there, and you're able to identify yourself and come in and have that secure measure there right in place, kind of that frontline defense. However, if you look around the building, at any time, in our building specifically, you can push open a door. There are, in the first floor alone, probably 30 exterior entrances and exits, which with 800 students moving throughout the day, or just people coming and going, those doors don't always seal, they don't always shut correctly. We've tried to update those and fix those problems, but there's still just sometimes that solutions that Mother Nature won't provide us with the pressure in the doors locking, our ability to keep people that are supposed to be here, and people that aren't supposed to be out. So working through those solutions, finding a way to have the best flow through the building, having guests coming in through one centralized spot and not ability to access the building any other way. I know that was a challenge when we renovated and added central office here, having to talk about the correct door so that visitors could come through central office, but not then gain immediate access to the rest of our building and intermix with the 800 12 to 18-year-olds that we have here. Through that process very carefully. So the school security with those measures on top of the improved, I would say, building materials. And I know the measures that we have to take when we do renovations, like a few years ago when we renovated the commons, and the amount of asbestos and those types of things that are in the building. So not only just our safety measures, but our health concerns for our students is a huge, huge priority. Start talking about security systems, you look at cameras. And our building is fortunate to have probably the most updated camera system in the entire district. But when you look at the Longfellow and Riley buildings, who do not have, I believe, any surveillance video cameras at all, so if there was an incident, to be able to view, monitor what's happening. And at the Riley building, cameras that we've invested into, but still just quite aren't meeting that, the necessities of the world and the situations that we may encounter. So those are huge opportunities for us to create buildings that our students can come to and feel safe in every single day, that our staff can work in comfortably, knowing that the measures have been put in place, that the priorities have been made to keep students and staff safe, and be able to have them focus on the educational environment and the student learning that's supposed to be taking place in those buildings. We have things in place now that allow us to alert. We have Chief Loreno and Chief Chapman here today, so thank you, but allow us to work very carefully with them, and this building process will allow us to continue to do that. And they'll touch on the technology piece later, but the technology that exists today is amazing. And with the press of a button in various places, we can alert all the community agencies we need. So continuing to implement that process in this building process and continuing to create that safe environment is, to me, probably one of the biggest benefits that we're going to see. Another one, we talk about transportation. And I know this is a huge, huge thing. We're coming an entire town to one spot now. First time in the history of our district outside of maybe the early foundation, when you talk about single schoolhouse type situations. But there's some kind of things that will change with coming out here. Right now, if you are an elementary student at Longfellow or Riley, your bus radius is 1 mile. Meaning if you live outside of 1 mile of those schools, you will be eligible for busing. The intermediate building, because the age goes up, it's 1.5 miles, because those grades 3 through 6. So if you live within 1.5 miles, you are not eligible. If you live outside, you are. But with it being a pre-K 6 building, all students housed in that building will be at that 1 mile radius. So any student pre-K through 6 that lives outside of 1 mile of that building across the street, and I don't know we don't have a big town, but 1 mile is about just probably a couple blocks past Main Street, is now eligible for busing. So then we start talking about transportation and the traffic flow. So we have, I think the number is 180 students right now, this is kind of where we threw, that aren't eligible for busing, that would be eligible for busing at the new building if this process was approved. So the amount of cars having to come out here and pick up would decrease because those students are going to be eligible for that busing, and the traffic flow issue that will be continued to be worked through will be reduced because the number of students being eligible for busing that weren't before will increase. And that to me is a huge, huge benefit, because we know our students, especially the little ones, even if you're 10 years old walking 1.5 miles, sure they can handle it. Weathers are harsh. It's not always the easiest situation. And again, student learning priority, student safety being our priority. This is an opportunity to give them one less reason or one less worry about coming to school. With that, as well as the transportation piece, our building will still be the 2 mile radius. We have 2 miles here for grades 7 through 12, which takes you about to Town Street, roughly in that area. But we've talked a lot about how can we function to make this convenient for parents, because right now you're going from one school to another school to another school. I know I have a student at Longfellow. My son goes there. Or my wife, who's the better half here, she'll speak next, but she can kind of touch on that as well. But in a few years, he would be at Riley, and then I'd be going to Riley and Longfellow to pick up my daughter, and it'd be intermediate building in Riley. And we know a lot of our community members struggle through that, making sure they can get around to get their children. This is an opportunity to have one centralized campus that's going to allow one pickup time. And if that involves us creating and implementing after-school programs, volunteer opportunities, intervention or academic intervention opportunities for our students, then that's a win-win for us. We can now provide our students with a safe place in their school to continue to receive academic support, but also make it a more convenient system for our parents to be able to come to this campus one time and pick up all children they have pre-K through 8th grade. So that is amazing compared to the current system that we have in place. I am going to at this time pass it over, but if there are questions about the transportation or anything like that, we can field some now, or if you'd like, write them down on your cards or speak with us after. Questions? Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, as Drew said, I'm Kelly Bauman. I'm the principal at Longfellow. I wanted to piggyback him a little bit with the transportation. If you've been to Longfellow in the last 2 years, around 3:20 to 3:30, it is a complete chaotic disaster some days, and it's just because we have a lot of parents who want to be involved and pick up their child at that time during the day, and quite frankly, there's just not enough room for all those cars. So at this point, we try to do our best to open the gates to the stadium, and they can park over there and walk, but as you know, with our cold winters, that's not always convenient. So with the change in the radius of the mileage, that will really help that we can bus more students. I think parents will be more comfortable because they'll also not be so worried about their student being at a different building and it's new and everything, because they'll be in one building for many, many years, and probably be more willing to put them on a bus and decrease that traffic that we have of parents every day. So transportation will also be, we've been looking at the routes of what they are currently and how many parents we have currently picking up compared to how many we would be able to have on buses. So we're doing those studies to see exactly what those numbers match up and how that would affect in the future. Another big piece that I'd like to speak about personally is the climate-controlled opportunities that we'd have in a new building. Currently, even into September this year, we had days where by 10 o'clock it was 85 degrees in classrooms. And then by 2 o'clock after lunch, when learning is expected to happen, it was nearly 95 degrees in our upstairs classrooms. Downstairs, we have preschoolers that are expected to or asked or offered to nap each day. And you can imagine how hot it would be and how difficult that is for a student to focus and learn, to rest, and just operate under those temperatures. So, and then on the other side of that, in the winter, there are days when we are not sure if heat is going to make it to one of our end classrooms because the boiler just doesn't quite pump enough heat down there. So we have had to split up classes with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds and take them to another room where they're not learning in jackets and hats and mittens. So, it is a real problem. It's, I've heard people say, well, we didn't have air conditioning when we were in school. However, I think the expectations of learning are a lot higher for students at a lower level. And then, it's hot, and then it's really cold. And we even had days last year that on a Sunday, we had to have the boiler serviced on a Sunday so that we could make sure that we'd have heat on Monday. And there was a close call there on whether or not we'd be able to have, learning happening on Monday at Longfellow. So it is a real issue. And these things are serviced, they're maintained, we take care of them. But as you can see from one of our first slides, the benefit of having new as opposed to updating what is currently there is a lot cheaper and a lot safer. So you'll see some of the pictures of our boiler. You can view some of those as you're having dinner tonight. And just by the looks of it, we're lucky that we are maintaining heat in the building. So we're getting to that point now in the year where it's being serviced and worked on to make sure that it's effective and that, we can learn each day. So, again, if you have questions about anything, whether it's the issues that I talked about, I do have some staff here tonight that'd be willing to answer questions as well. So, thank you.
All right, I'm Tara Matz. I'm the principal at the intermediate school. I'm going to talk to you about instructional benefits. Obviously, as a school district, that is our primary focus, is educating your children. And so I'm going to talk about the benefits of coming together, not just as centralized campus out here, but as well as the benefits for having our 3 elementaries under one roof as well. One of the first things I want to talk about is just instructional benefits and possibilities for teachers. The opportunity for teachers to be at a centralized location, all under one roof, and be able to collaborate, have those conversations to allow for that vertical alignment of the curriculum. As a 3rd grade teacher, they can walk right down the hallway, talk to a 2nd grade teacher, see what things they had taught last year, things that were a problem for the students, things that they want to do a little bit differently, as well as resources. Right now, we have a variety of resources in the district. We are very lucky to have the things that we have, but they are spread out all over town. And so what happens is sometimes we may have a student that we know that there's this really good program we'd like to use, but that's a third grader at the intermediate, but that program sits over at Riley. So we need to either run across town and get that and borrow it, or purchase an additional because they have students at Riley as well. So financially, it's also going to be a benefit because we can get a variety of resources, but have them all under one roof and available to everyone within the district. Within the district. Also, the opportunity for teachers to provide intervention and enrichment based on students and their needs individually, rather than a specific grade level. Have times where students can receive instruction at a first, second grade level, even though they may be a third, fourth grader, but we have those resources available. Or have students who maybe by grade and by age they're a third grader, but they have the ability to work at a fifth, sixth grade level. Have them head down the hallway. And so that goes into some academic opportunities as well. The availability of having some accelerated coursework. Currently, as a district, we do primarily accelerate students in math, but to be able to open that up to the areas, all the other content areas as well, and be able to provide acceleration or remediation of students as well. Also, the opportunity academically to offer a variety of specialized courses at a lower level. For example, I know one of the ones we've talked about is beginning foreign languages at an earlier level. So being able to start offering our elementary students foreign language much earlier, which again is a 21st century skill. Those language skills are things that are now expected much earlier and much more in depth to graduate. The other thing with academic opportunities and just possibilities out there with having everyone centralized is the idea of, currently we have some mentoring programs. Riley has mentoring. We have Project More at the intermediate. All of those are great programs, but the opportunity to bring that all up together and really create a mentoring and tutoring program that spans across the grade levels and use our students. We have the benefit being out here just across the parking lot that we do use several students from the junior senior high that come over and do our Project More program, but it is and it's phenomenal. They do a great job. So to be able to have that opportunity of having everyone out here pre-K 12 and being able to have some of those mentoring, tutoring roles, because we all know kids learn best from one another, and for those younger students to have those older as a mentor and as a student to look up to and a role model is a fantastic opportunity for both parties involved. The other opportunity is simply to have that availability of intermixing between grade levels for special projects or special events. I know we have several different things that we do just at the intermediate where we'll take a third grader and a sixth grader and they'll work on a project together. And that's great, but to have that ability to do that across all grade levels opens up even more opportunity. The idea of special programming, having assemblies. Right now, if I want to have an assembly and Kelly would like to offer the same thing to preschool and kindergarten and Corey wants to offer it, we end up paying 3 times for that assembly to go building to building to building. So to be able to bring that under one roof and then offer more opportunities to students as well with those types of special programmings. The other thing that I'd like to discuss really is relationships, and there's several things. Right now there's a lot of transitions in the district. A student that starts with us, they spend, if they go to preschool at Longfellow, they spend a couple years there and then they transition to Riley, and then they spend 2 years there and then they come out to the intermediate school, spend 4 years there, and then they come to the junior senior high. That's a lot of transitions for students to go through, and we know that when we look at our data, every transition we have students struggle with that a little bit. It's difficult, it's new expectations, a new building, new people, and so it's really kind of difficult for students to wrap their minds around that. So one of the things that we've talked about is lessening those transitions. There will truly only be one transition. It would be from the elementary to the junior senior high. And one of the things that we've currently done at the elementaries is we have our Leader in Me initiative that we have in place. And so that is kind of that first step in starting to draw together the 3 elementary buildings to become one, to have that cohesive language, to talk to the students the same language, same expectations, same culture and climate, so that there will be less transition. And with that as well is also that relationship that you build with students. Right now, if you're a first grade teacher, you have that student for first, second grade, you may never see them again, or you may run into them when they're a freshman and you don't even recognize it's that student because they've changed a lot in the years since you've seen them. And so really to be able to build that relationship, but then maintain that throughout that student's educational career, because we also know there's always those students who they have that one special teacher they've connected with, and then they don't ever see them, and they, as much as teachers, we want to continue to maintain that relationship and keep contact, it's difficult. We see lots of kids, but if we're under one roof or our parking lot across, it's much easier to do that and to keep tabs on those kiddos and be able to maintain that relationship. The other thing is opportunities for staff. For staff to be able to be involved at multiple levels. Right now, for an elementary teacher to want to be a coach or to do something at the junior senior high is very difficult because of times and being able to get out here for practices and those types of things. But it's a great benefit to our students to also see the teachers in those roles as well. So to be out here at a centralized campus allows for staff to be able to be involved multiple levels, multiple different ways. Mr. Ballman talked about the opportunity to do academic intervention either before school in the morning, after school in the evening, have something similar to our, we used to have our Project Success program. Those types of programming, we have the staff that will be, everybody will be right here and be able to be a part of that and be involved. So again, just lots of opportunities academically, lots of opportunities for staff collaboration, and also just to build the culture and climate of the school. I know Mr. Ballman has talked with us at the elementary levels, very interested in student leadership, staff leadership, and so really to begin to create that culture and climate that is consistent across the district, not just across the buildings, and build that school spirit, that school pride, and really become what we know Fostoria is capable of being. So building those relationships, and kind of this project sets that foundation and gives us those opportunities to kind of come together as one and move forward on that project. So thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. There we go. Well, it's nice to see some familiar faces. I'm not sure how many of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Sue Lehman. I'm your new treasurer, effective November 1. Currently, I'm serving the district as your interim treasurer while I finish my commitment to Norwalk City Schools through the end of October. I've kind of come into this project late. The rest of this group has done all the hard work, and now I get to roll in and tell you the good news about what it's going to cost you. The entire master project contains two components. There's, can you go back? There's the co-funded portion, which we've touched on briefly, but I wanted to share with you that the state comes up with a calculation every year based on how much is going to be funded by them and how much is going to be funded by us. I think Andy touched briefly on the fact that we looked at this one other time and our share was 41%, and this time we're looking at 11%. I don't want anyone in the audience to get the idea that if we just wait another year, our funding option is going to get better, because it could go the other way. So that's important to note. This particular project, we're looking at an 89% match by the state, which is the $41.8 million, and our portion would be 11%, which is about $5.5. The second portion of the project is the LFI, which I believe Andy explained that to you, but that's the piece that we have to pick up for those items that the state will not fund. In the LFI right now, we're looking at some additional classrooms and reprogramming space at the intermediate and elementary school, new bleachers and a renovation of the locker rooms here, new community entrance, which that'll be community area here that Andy discussed, renovation of the corridor, and then 2 corridors connecting this to the new school. That LFI piece would be $3.9 million. So what you're really looking at is we've got the 5.5 match on the co-funded portion, and then we have the 3.9 million on the LFI, and that means each of us as local taxpayers are on the hook for 9.4 million. So to me, as a local taxpayer, this is the icing on the cake. If the voters are kind enough to support us in this measure on November 3rd, what we're looking at is 3.5 mils, and we're currently paying 3.75 on some old debt that's going to expire at the same time. The estimation is that your tax bills will probably go down just a little bit based on current estimation. I'd also like to point out that we have a really inviting interest rate season right now. I just refunded some bonds at Norwalk, came in at 1.99. There's no guarantee what the interest rate market is going to do over the next year, but it is a good time to look at interest rates, and they're not predicted to go up much over the next year. So that's another great opportunity for us. This kind of gives you an idea of what your taxes would be on that 3.5 mil. If your home is valued at $100,000, you're going to get taxed on the $35,000, and your annual payment on that will be $122.50. Monthly, $1021, and so on and so forth. But again, that 3.75 is going to roll off, so it's just really an opportune time for us to make this move as taxpayers. If we pass this up, we may not get a better deal the next time around, and there's no guarantee that we're going to get that rate. And then if we miss this opportunity and we have to start making major investments into our buildings, we're going to bear the cost of all that ourselves. So, thank you.
Getting hungry yet? I love the enthusiasm when I started working with the staff, and they just ramp up to about there, as you probably noticed. This won't take very long. We wanted to give you an aerial view of potentially where we're thinking about adding on the new building to the PAC. And so this first large arrow up at the top, we wanted to try to position where this new building would go. And this is not a final design. It's more of a blocking out of the square footage. We wanted to do this with as little disruption actually to the junior high school students, so that we're not displacing them, putting them in modulars. So we're looking at this area to the north as a location for the new building. Sorry, I'm moving the screen. You'll notice that if we do that, we're going to take up some of that parking area to the north. So we're looking at building a new parking area over here if needed. When we come over to the intermediate, or will be the new PK6, we talked about some LFIs. That's for that addition right there that we are getting co-funding on, but we wanted to add a couple of extra classrooms in for pre-K. So part of that addition holds a little bit of LFI dollars to it. The big challenge that we had was the circulation of traffic flow and what you all put up with students coming in and out and parent drop-off. Because we haven't finalized the design, we're very confident that we can, in the site development throughout the entire site for both projects, we can redo some of that circulation and try to ease that up, along with working with the district on the release times, how they're going to stack up, and so forth. So we're pretty confident that we can get that straightened out. I know that that's a problem. So that just gives you a quick aerial view. The next slide that we're going to do, you're going to go on a helicopter ride. And this helicopter is going to start out in this corner of the property, and it's going to fly around this building. And it's going to give you a glimpse. It'll give you a glimpse of what we envision. It'll give you an idea. So here's just the perspective. And remember, this is not showing the two-story academic now is down. There's the PAC coming up. There's the new junior senior high school. Earlier, someone mentioned about corridors connecting. We're going to connect up to that new building. Coming around, there's the tennis courts. This is a 2-story academic, is what we envision. And this is the fun part. You're going to fly into the new community space, which is going to come right down this corridor. So that's the new entrance. And that corridor is going to be set up. It's going to be trophies, display areas on either side. We're going to have areas of memorabilia from the other schools, areas that can be set up for special programs. And now you're looking down the corridor that goes past the gym and the PAC. I kid Andy, that's what he looks like in about 20 years. And then you go down. It's going to take you down the corridor, and it's real quick. It's going to happen kind of fast, but you're going to go through that back set of doors, through the new connector, and you'll just get a glimpse. And we didn't go any further than that, just to give you an idea. So there's a new connector, and then that's looking back outside. Goes fast, but that's kind of the concept. It's been very valuable for us to have that and to be able to show it. I think it's been on your website, so that's been very valuable. Again, we're not into a full design. We're getting close to that. Obviously, we're waiting for the local share to be passed, and the state comes in and says, yeah, we're ready to go. So now you got to get out and vote. And hopefully we're very successful, and we keep the staff ramped down just a little bit. They're too excited, you know, they're ready to go. So thank you very much. I'll turn this over to Andy.
All right. Thank you all for your patience as we went through that. But we wanted to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of what we're trying to do, what our goals are. And I would like to echo what Wayne says. We are at such a very exciting time in the district. I think the level of enthusiasm is through the roof right now. And, you know, I think the commitment and the dedication is here. And this is only going to build that foundation for us for generations to come. And I think this is one thing that we haven't touched on tonight is when we look at a $50 million project coming into this town, and, you know, schools don't always have a lot of opportunities in that sense to, you know, help out local businesses and things like that. But this kind of a project gives us an opportunity for our local contractors to bid on projects, participate in the design and the planning, and get them involved in what's going on. And then as the project goes on, you know, the workers are eating at our restaurants, they're buying gas at our gas stations, they're staying at the hotel. All of those things are going on in the community, so everybody benefits. And that's just an exciting piece for us that we can help out in the city as much. And I know I've had that conversation with Mayor Keckler and Renee, and you know, we've just had that all across town at the events that we've been presenting at. So I didn't want to forget to mention that. But at this point in time, you've already had the opportunity to write some questions down, but we have Lynn and Pam on the sides, and they have a microphone if you're willing to get up and ask your question, or you can pass them. We can do question and answer, because the last thing we want is people to leave without a question being answered. We'll do our best, and if we don't know an answer, we're going to flat out tell you we're not at that point yet. We don't have that, but we will get back to you. So at this point, we'll do some question and answer, and then we'll wrap it up and get dinner started.
Yes. I have two questions. The first one is, are you going to have the same teaching staff when you come here as you do right now, or are you going to have to get rid of some of them?
Our goal, and when we went through and we're mapping things out to make sure that we had the square footage right, is that we're going to have the same teaching staff. We have done a lot over the last couple of years to get our spending under control and make sure that we're living within our means. So we are pretty much at where we can't go any smaller.
My next question is, since you are moving here, are you going to get rid of some of the buses, or are you going to keep the same buses for the same amount of children that you have?
We're actually going to have to add some routes for buses with more students on, because our buses, and we have a couple drivers here tonight, and I'm sure they would attest to the fact that you know, our buses are pretty full, and we're going to, with more kids getting on, and coming out here with us shrinking that distance and with, eliminate, because right now we currently don't let any students cross county line one way or the other. So if you shut down Riley and Longfellow, any of those walkers that are on the east side of county line, they're now bus eligible, and we need to get them here. So we're going to actually be adding buses, and we factored that into our district's 5-year forecast, and we're probably going to be purchasing a bus probably every year over the next several years to make sure that we can meet this demand and then keeping our bus fleet up to date. Future growth and shrinkage. Yes, we have available space, and I can address student enrollment has been relatively around 1,850 students over the last 4 to 5 years. It's been fairly consistent around that number, give or take a few each year. I believe this year we're at 1,868. So 1,850 is usually where I average it off when we talk about that. Enrollment is looked at as part of the planning process, and they go and they track live births and things, and they start putting them on the calendar basically as to where they would be. So that is factored into space, but we also will have some classroom space on the backside of the commons area. There are some classrooms there that we will have some space to grow, and that's an exciting piece for us. We've seen that happen with all of our neighboring schools. When they've built new facilities, they've gotten a bump in enrollment. Unfortunately, they've stolen from us, and we'd like to steal back. So that's kind of where we're at.
What do you say to the people who say we need to improve our academic standards as a school system before we worry about building a new school?
I think our answer to that is we are on that road to academic improvement, and we know that we've got a lot of work in front of us. It's not something that's going to take care of itself. I think it's a total community commitment to that process. It starts, in the schools, at home, with our local businesses being involved, participating in these mentorship programs. So I think we've got a lot of that foundation built into this, and I think the upgrade technology that is going to help us in the classroom, because right now to have students come into class and sit for 7 hours every day reading from a book or something like that, that's not real engaging for our kids, and we need to make sure our classrooms are set up so that they are engaging. We do that with the technology that we have, but making sure that we have top-notch technology and plenty of it, because that's how our kids learn. They want to have that that touch and that feel and that action piece to it. They we joke in some of our meetings that we used to sit down and read directions and then we could explain how to do something. Now the kids, they manipulate and they figure out how to do things, and then they tell us what we needed to do to get there. And I think that's kind of how we're addressing that, and I think we're well on our way, but we still have some work to do, and we are addressing some of those issues.
And to kind of follow and to echo a lot of what Mrs. Matz talked about, to improve academics, we want to continue to improve what we can offer our students. That includes the environment. And it's not just about having, a shiny new floor and a nice new building, but the things that we will do inside of that building, the work our teachers will be able to do, and for our elementary students at Longfellow and Riley to not have those obstacles of classrooms that aren't even up to the state required amount of space, or having the required tools and resources they need. So to say, well, you need to get better academically before we'll do this is we want to. That's what we're working towards, and this is hopefully a step to do that, not just to have a new building, but these efforts are made in the hopes of improving achievement because of the opportunities that will be made available to us. And I think we've been pretty fiscally responsible through this process and not just going, and getting every shiny new thing that'll continue to add to that bill to keep the cost of this building process down while still meeting the needs of our students.
I'd like to ask a question myself, and it kind of ties to what you're talking to. My husband and I recently toured Hopewell Loudon's new facility. And when we went in, we noticed that all the ceilings in the room were slanted. And I finally asked what was the reason for it, and they told us it had to do with how the light reflected off the ceiling and onto a desk and how a child learned. And I couldn't believe it. You know, it's obviously not my, classroom from back in the day. And I just wondered who could address how the building design and the educational aspect come together and what we could be looking at.
Great question. Good observation. One of the requirements that the state of Ohio has on any school project that they are going to put funding into is that that building has to be designed and is required to meet a LEED certification. Part of that certification requires a certain amount of daylighting for classrooms. They've done tons of studies to find out what the students, how they improve with proper daylighting, their attention spans, their learning. So it kind of does tie into the attempts by the staff to improve and keep moving forward in the future for their academic delivery. So even though that's a requirement, as part of our designs, and you'll see that maybe while we're eating some of the photographs, you'll notice a lot of daylighting, and it's so important. Nobody wants to spend 6, 7, 8 hours in a dark environment, I don't think. But these students do perform better with more daylighting. So that is a requirement. And what you saw with the sloped ceiling was that the sunshine actually penetrates the glass or the window, and it reflects up and goes off that ceiling, and then it actually comes down. There's also an energy conservation piece to that, where the lighting is controlled. So if you have enough daylighting, it automatically shuts down some of the power consumption or the lights, and it keeps it balanced. So it's kind of a neat process. It's just one of the things that we have to incorporate into our design, energy efficiencies and so forth.
What measures will be taken to alleviate the traffic issues with everyone on one campus?
That is definitely something that we've tried to touch on some this evening, but and it's still a work in progress. Obviously, more students on buses means that less people have to drive out here. So there's one part to the solution. So hopefully, people will use the district transportation to help in that sense. But looking at, we've talked about rerouting things, maybe making some of the areas around the buildings one way. This is a conversation we've had with our police department, with Wayne from Garmin, and putting in roundabouts. There's all kinds of things that we can do with traffic flow around the buildings. It's definitely on our radar, and it's definitely been a conversation piece as I've been going around town and talking with people that we understand, and we want to make sure that we're addressing that. And then also the issue, I think it was Drew that talked about it earlier, our goal is that there is one pickup and one drop-off time for families. So I think that's going to be a big help too, because right now, when people are lining up because maybe they pick up a student here at the junior senior high school, 7th grader at, they pick them up at 2:30, well, and then they're lining up and waiting until 3 o'clock when the intermediate lets out, and that does create congestion around the buildings, and we understand that. And our goal is that you will only have to come out one time. So whatever building or whatever section of grades is getting out at one point in time, we're going to have to put something in place as a district, so that we can provide some intervention or some activities for students to do. That way we can meet the needs of our parents, and we're trying to take that very seriously and consider all aspects of that as we go forward.
Will junior and senior high school students still be mixed together?
We're going to set, there is some part of that where, yes, they will, because we can't completely separate, but academically, we want to set up an environment that's conducive for 7th and 8th grade learning. And I think that is one thing that's missing. So we will try to have some separation and make sure that, academically those issues are separated and things like that. I'm not going to stand up here and say that they will never cross paths in the building, because that's not possible. But we'll do our best and make sure that we function very well. And I think I would invite people to come out and see our 7 through 12 right now. I think the way our schedule is set up and things like that this year, I think we're operating very efficiently, and some of those issues that people might perceive to be there aren't really there. But that's another issue that we are definitely aware of and want to address.
and Mr. Sprang said, there's some things you can't avoid, and being in other districts that are the pre-K things where they have their different wings. I had worked at Elmwood prior to coming to Fostoria, and you did have some intermixing of 5th, 12th graders during some class changes. The schedule reference he made, we've reduced it to there's only 2 transitions really in a day that take place, and that's in the morning and in the afternoon, because we have 4 periods each day. So the amount of class time in between when students are intermixing in the hallways is really the greatest chance, and we've made an effort to reduce that to stop those types of incidents from happening. But also here in this building this year, we've really tried to embrace the whole idea that we together are all Redmond, that we're all part of this learning community, and that we're all here to support one another. We've had, I think, 3 or 4 pep rallies already where we have every grade represented, and having pride not only in being a 7th or an 8th grader, a member of the class of 2016, but also having pride in being a Redmond, and not have internal that we're here together, and that we work together, and that we learn together, and creating that environment. And I know a lot of the work that they've done at the elementary buildings with the Leader in Me program, we look to build on and take, being a leader and being a Redmond in a positive way. So, we do want to ensure student safety and make sure that learning isn't compromised with the different grade levels. There can also be some benefits to the in one building, the ability to mentor, the ability to interact younger and older students. So there are some positives to being housed in the same facility, but being safe and smart about how we have those students interacting.
What will the state expect when we accept their money? And I heard that some will vote against it to keep things local, less government intervention.
Wayne, I'm going to defer that one to you.
Probably many of you don't know, I spent 14 years with the state of Ohio with the School Facilities Commission prior to going to work with Garmin Miller. I retired from the state. So I've got pretty good knowledge base about how that program works and what they expect districts to follow. To answer your question, once you've passed your local share, you will enter an agreement with the state of Ohio. They will be co-owners of your project during the project. After the project's completed, it's your building. What do they expect? They typically would expect that your classrooms be of a certain size. They've done enough studies to figure out the amount of square footage that's required. They're going to require that, we talked earlier about site. They're going to review the site layout, the bus drop-off, the parent drop-off, the safety issues. They're going to look at the lighting that we talked about earlier, the LEED certification. Those are all requirements to get that state funding. Those are good requirements, by the way. There's nothing that's really way out of whack when they come in. They're typically, they're budget based, let's put it that way. If the project's in budget, they don't whine too much. If you're over budget, they tend to put their thumb down a little bit. They use a term called value engineering. It's usually done at the design stage. I just don't feel that there's a major problem. It doesn't really matter how much money they're putting in as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with the project. They will not come in and necessarily dictate that you have to design the building in a certain way. It has to be located in a certain location. They're just going to ask you to meet the requirements of school district size, meaning classrooms, course base, student dining has to be a certain size, and it's all based on population. The media center, library, that has to be of a certain size. So I think they're good. They're good requirements, and we've dealt with it. Well, I've dealt with it on both sides now, but from a design standpoint, it's pretty easy to meet those. A lot of input comes from the district, by the way. Yes, that is a requirement. It'll be fully ADA required. Bathroom facilities, entrances, power doors, etc.
To address the question with the junior, senior high students intermixing, we actually have a 7th grade student who is sitting right here, who I said I would introduce, but she would actually like to speak as a 7th grader, kind of what that's been like, and address that from the student perspective. So this is Jolie Counts, and she is a 7th grader here.
Hi. Like, the intermixing isn't that bad. Like, there's not a lot of like intermixing with older high school kids really in the hallway, and I think transitioning from classes, like just with the hallways being so packed, I'm not doing a lot of intermixing with any older people, but like just walking from class to class, there's really no problems going on with mixing, and I actually like being a 7th grader here. They I am not afraid to come to school every morning and intermix with a whole bunch of other people. I actually like having more people around me each day, and I do like coming to school actually now. Well, I don't know, and yeah, well, like I'm not mixing with a lot of older people. Like, I'll see a few older people in the hallways, and it's not that hard to transfer from class to class in 5 minutes that we have, and it actually gives me more time to stop at my locker if I forgot my book or whatever, but intermixing isn't too hard, and yeah, so, yeah.
Alan and Terry Kaminsky here, and I just wanted to voice our support for this project. It means a lot to our community, and I think a lot of people underestimate our student body in the community. We got great kids, we got great administrators, and we got teachers that work hard to improve the education for our kids. And this project, I mean, if you look at it, it's a no-brainer. 89% paid for, and our taxes are going down. I mean, there's no reason not to approve this project. So, I mean, we had 3 kids go through the system. They're all great kids. They're doing great things. And we don't hear enough about the positive things, in our community. So, I mean, we have a business here in town. We're all in. And I think our community should be all in for the kids. So, that's all I got.
Thank you. And I also have Bill here who would like to ask something.
Check. Yep. I heard a lot of emphasis on security, and one of the things, and I don't know if these numbers are available, Chief Loretto might be able to know, or we have resource officers. How much time, how much tax dollars how much time is wasted of that resource officer traveling back and forth from all the school districts and the school buildings when they can be in front of everybody? I know my kids, I got two kids in the system. They mentioned about seeing the officer once in a while. How much taxpayer dollars go into getting that patrol car from point A to point B through the whole year? That's just something we can gain back, and it might be simple. It might be $100 a year, but it's still tax dollars that's coming out of our pocket that can probably be recouped. And then the plain fact of getting that resource officer in the schools more than traveling between the districts.
I'll address that a little bit, and then Chief Moreno, if you'd like to add in, because I'm not going to have numbers. But no, you're absolutely right, Billy. There is a lot of time because they do a great job. We have Officer Kaiser here, junior, senior high, so yes, he's here primarily all the time. But Officer Nelson is between Longfellow, Riley, the intermediate, and I know I can speak for like the intermediate. He's there twice a day. So he is constantly bouncing around on the road. And so that is a huge benefit. And along with that, they also just had 2 new officers, Officer Nelson as well as Sergeant Moore also got the DARE training. So that is something I was actually just talking with Officer Nelson yesterday about, is how to bring that DARE training. And he expressed exactly that. it would be so nice if everybody was in one building. I can provide the training, I can go into the classrooms, I can be here, because of course how things work out. As soon as somebody wants him, he's in a different building, and and that's just the logistics of it. I do think that they do a great job of trying to be visible from building to building to building, but you're absolutely right, that downtime. And with that, kind of a benefit to that, and I don't know if you touched on it, we have shared staff as well, not just our resource officers, but our school nurse that is the same thing, trying to go around. Or we have some of our Longfellow and Riley share a couple staff members with those art teachers and PE teachers. And so really just generally that travel time that we do lose, instructional time that we're paying people for transportation, you're absolutely right. To come out to one place definitely addresses that issue.
That's a great question. Obviously, I don't have an exact number tonight for you with, fuel costs and vehicles, but one of the things that we really look at is with the security side. In the event of any kind of emergency, now we have 2 available officers in that one location. So those response times obviously would be immediately decreased. They're going to be able to, anything they'll be able to basically tag team any kind of functions at the campus. And of course, it's a no-brainer that there will be reduced fuel costs. It would be reduced vehicle maintenance, things like that. And again, it gives us 2 people at one location at all times. Plus, I have that 3rd supervisor that's coming in from time to time. So you're exactly right. The security is doubled immediately as a result of this. So we're looking forward to this.
I have a question.
More of a comment. Andy, I just wanted to say that the city of Fostoria fully supports this plan. We've enjoyed what we've seen out of the administrations that Andy's taken over, and with all the administrators at all the schools and all the things that have happened so far. I think this really sets a tone for the future. This levy is passed. The city of Fostoria also has 1% renewal on the ballot this year, so in one day we can really set the tone for the future, and we fully support it, and I hope that everybody else will too, because this is a big opportunity to bring a lot of our kids back and set the tone for the entire future of this community. I think it makes a lot of sense to vote yes on this and make some really good things happen here in town. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Yes, is there much of a savings anticipated by going from basically 4 school buildings down to 2 school buildings, just in the basic maintenance, every day-to-day utilities?
There will be a decent maintenance savings on that. Obviously I don't want to put a number out there, to be exact on that. But yeah, there will be maintenance costs, and it'll also open up doors for other opportunities, because money that we're putting into maintenance now, maybe we can do some more of those locally funded pieces that we want to do to make our campus and our school district the best that it can be. So there will be savings, and we're going to try to put that money to use in the best possible way. So, all right, I think that's maybe it on questions. If you think of more, please write them down. There's plenty of staff and other community members here this evening. Please ask and everything as you enjoy dinner. And we also have some of our fine students here with us this evening. The Redmond Pride Marching Band is going to play a little bit of music for us. They are a marching band, so it will be loud, but hopefully the glass here will serve a little bit of a buffer there. But they're going to perform, and I think we're going to start on this end of the room right here to go up and get food. So we'll just kind of snake our way around the room. But before we do that, I want to not forget to thank our sponsors tonight. City Barbecue, the local Eagles Club, and Citizens for Better Schools have put this event together tonight, and we owe them a round of applause for that.